Welcome back to the Creators MBA Show. My name is Dr. Destiny Kopp, and I'm super excited that you are joining me here today. So here's the thing. Most digital product entrepreneurs assume that scaling means hiring more team members, more support, more people on calls. But my guest today took a different path. After her best launch ever brought in almost 200 new students, Savannah's live coaching calls were getting out of control. Her membership deliverables were doubling, and she was burning out. So instead of building a team, we built her an AI clone together. In this episode, we're walking through first what broke, what we tried, the triage framework that made the clone actually work like her, and what her students are saying now. Let's get right into it. Savannah, I am super excited to be chatting with you today, and we're going to be digging into your AI clone that you and I developed together. But before we get into all that, can you tell the good audience just a little bit more about you and what you do?
Yes, thank you. And thank you so much for having me on the show. So I help writers in a few different ways. One of them is through my podcast. That's my free content. My signature course is called Notes to Novel, which really helps people take all their messy, shiny ideas and turn them into a first draft that reads more like a third or fourth because they've done all the hard work up front developing their ideas. And then after that, I invite graduates into my membership, which is where ideally they're going through the next stages of that. So they're revising it, they're getting ready to publish it and market it, and then hopefully starting a new book right after that. So that's kind of the world I operate in, fiction stories all the time. That's my bread and butter.
Yeah. And just so you know, I'm like super jealous of the work that you do. That would be my dream, to live in that type of world all day long. That is on my bucket list, to do a book like that. 5 years down the road, that's on my bucket list. So before we get into the AI clone that we worked on, I'd love for you to paint a picture for the audience of kind of the scale you were operating at, how many writers you had that you were supporting, what kind of support they were getting from you. So talk a little bit about that.
Yes. Okay. So this kind of all surrounds what also was my breaking point. So I know we're going to get into that later, but to paint you a picture, my Notes to Novel course is offered self-study evergreen, and it's offered live, where I do live cohorts 2 to 3 times a year. And we go through the course for 8 weeks, and there's coaching and things like that. So that's one silo. And then on the other side is my membership, where there's a weekly deliverable from me. A week 1, we do a masterclass. A week 2 and 4, we do live office hours. And then in the middle, week 3, we do a community get to know you kind of call. So that's the kind of landscape we have. And in my last live launch, which was in August of 2025, we had our best promo, our best launch ever. We welcomed so many new students. It was just under 200. And going into that, I was like, this is great. But I was a little worried and a little nervous. And how am I going to support almost 200 people by myself? Luckily, it was fine. And one of the things I do, I think, a good job at is I stay on the calls until all the questions get answered. So sometimes, most of the time, that meant my 60-minute calls would turn into a 90-minute call. And students were really happy with that, but I was getting more and more drained. Not because I don't like interacting with people or anything like that, but we all know for course creators, sometimes it's hard to be on for longer than you planned, and then that messes with your schedule and other things. That was the event that kicked the ball and made it roll downhill, because then all those graduates, we had our best promo yet and the best conversion into the membership, which also made those calls and deliverables kind of balloon. And I started getting worried about, how am I going to show up and serve everyone and give everyone the time and attention they need, which is what made me start looking at, what am I going to do about this?
So tell me, and I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, what did your typical week look like, or how many hours do you feel like you were supporting? It sounds like you were doing a lot.
Yeah, so let's go back to that time period where I was delivering it live and I had my membership. So if, let's say, I was meant to spend 8 hours over the course of the live cohort. So 8 live hours, 1 call a week. And then I was spending time in the community also answering questions. It was like 24 hours a month just for this live deliverable. Then that was the plan, right? But that ballooned very quickly because with more students, what I had done in the past wasn't going to cut it this time around. So I was probably spending double that once the course kicked off and we had all these students in. And then on top of that, once the 8 weeks were done, they came into my membership and that ballooned too. So instead of 4 hours a month on deliverables, maybe it was turning into 6 or 8 hours of deliverables. And I'm really regimented in my schedule. I love planning things. I love slotting things like recording my own podcast or speaking events or whatever. All of it's slotted on my calendar. And when things don't go according to plan, it causes problems in more than one way. So that's kind of what led to the explosion of, I need to do something about this.
So it was almost doubling your workload, really.
Almost, especially when I was live. And that it was really that everything else was manageable until that one cohort where we just got so many new students in. And that's a great problem to have, right? But I wasn't ready to have a solution on the back end yet.
What other options did you consider? Because I'm sure you were like, okay, this isn't working. What else could I do?
Yeah. And so I had seen other people run communities and run live events where they had maybe a community manager or they had student ambassadors or things like that. So I toyed with all those ideas. And then I kept coming back to the realization that, okay, if I get other people involved, that's me managing people. And that's still going to feel the same way to me that showing up for extra live calls or extra time, it's going to net the same result for me. So I was like, okay, that doesn't really work. And it wasn't about budget necessarily, like the business could afford to hire somebody. I just didn't want to manage additional people potentially. And at the same time, I happened to partake in someone else's boot camp where they were offering an AI clone as an upgrade. So I experienced it as a user and I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen because I literally felt like I was talking to that person outside of her boot camp.
And you were very smart to realize up front that hiring other people wasn't necessarily going to decrease your workload.
Yeah.
I can feel that.
In my past life, I worked in a corporate office and I had to manage people. So I know what that's, and that's such a big draw for why I want to run my own business. I don't have employees. I work with contractors right now. And I just couldn't imagine. It's just not the part I enjoy, the people managing.
So you experienced it through this other program, but did you have any fears about using it? What were your concerns?
Yeah, so I might be a little bit of an outlier in the sense that tech stuff doesn't scare me. Before I met you, Destiny, I think I told you I was playing with a version of my own clone and I just couldn't get it to work because I think there might not have been like a lot of great resources. I looked up all the things of how do I build this clone? What kind of things do I feed it? And I'd get really mixed messages from one place saying, just upload everything you can think of. And then other places would say, you have to upload small amounts in a specific order. And I just felt, okay, this is going to become a full-time job if I don't know what I'm doing. So that was one of my fears is like, I see the benefit. I'm not worried about the tech. I just don't know if I can spend the time I need to figure it out right now. Then there's a whole other side of it where in the writing world, because it's such a creative space, people are very anti-AI for creative writing. And there's a lot of great things that writers use AI for, like helping with their book marketing or doing research on things or whatever. But anytime you start to cross the line of this could potentially start writing a book for someone, people will shut down. They don't want to hear it. So I was also like, what if I spend all this time and then I'm either unable to express how it can help someone in a way that's not going to steal your creative writing power, or people just don't want it at all because it's AI related.
Yeah, I could see that being a huge fear on your.
Yeah.
So you build this, and is anybody going to use it? And we're going to get into that in just a second because I want to delve into that. So you had tried it on your own, you got stuck. It really wasn't giving you the results that you wanted. Yeah. So you found me.
Yeah, I think I was on your email list and you just had sent out an email about like, I'm helping some people work through their AI clones. And I was like, okay.
This is for me.
Yeah. And so I'm really good at researching too. I don't let things stop me. If I have a question, I'm like, let me go to Google or let me go to AI, whatever. And I typically will find the answer I'm looking for. And this is an area that stymied me. And maybe because I don't know, you tell me, but I feel like at the time I tried, like maybe a year before I met you, it was like early adopter time. And so maybe there wasn't a lot of resources out there. And just wasn't able to find the answer or get the help that I needed. And then you were coming at it like, I've done this and I know how to make it work. I understand because when you said that email, there was specific pain points you said where I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what's going on with my AI, my clone.
Okay. So you and I worked together. We spent about 4 weeks working together, going in, setting it up, testing it, doing the beta test with your students. So now I would love to know, let's talk a little bit about how you did your launch, or when I say your launch, how you launched it to your community and how did that go? And what were some of the struggles we had initially?
Yeah. And there's something that your listeners might find interesting too, is that I was a little worried because I'm like, okay, I feel like we all feel like we're snowflakes in the way. Is this going to work for my niche? And in my niche, there's so many genres. And one of my big things I teach is there's a lot of nuances per each genre and a lot of rules that you'll hear in the writing world that differ depending on the genre you're writing and all this stuff. And so on one hand, I was like, is the AI going to be able to capture the experience I have and the nuance that I know about coaching writers and all that? But on the other hand, is Destiny going to be able to understand what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to say? And so I was a little worried about that, but spoiler alert, worked out totally fine. And one of the things that I actually loved about it was you were asking me questions from a place of, I don't know your niche, but you do. And it really made me think in a different way that I wasn't able to do on my own. And I don't know if I ever told you that, Destiny, but that was really helpful because you were asking me things that I'm like, I haven't thought about it that way in 15 years.
Well, it is true. I really don't know your niche. I know how to teach.
Yeah.
Because I've been a teacher, a university professor for 20 plus years. But in terms of your niche and how you would coach students. So that is a lot of what we went into is how would you answer this if you were in a live call with your students? You might want to talk a little bit about that.
Yes. And that was really funny to me in hindsight because you kept asking the same question. How would you, human Savannah, answer this? And so you really helped me walk back to like, how does my brain work before the answer comes out of my mouth? Which is then what we had to train the AI to do. And there was a lot of stuff that it got right or close to right pretty quick, just based on my feeding it my course materials. And then also you helped me kind of write the instructions for how it was supposed to think. But one of the things we ran into, probably the biggest issue we ran into, was the idea that like the AI would answer something 5 steps ahead of where I knew the writer needed to be. So every time you would say, what would you say to the student? And my answer usually was, I would probably ask them a few questions before I even gave them an answer. So we had to figure out how to get AI to back up and ask the question to get to a place where it could even answer the student. So for example, because I know that's nebulous, if a student's asking the AI, how do I show my character's wound on the page? The AI could in theory give you a very generic answer like, oh, it needs to show up in the actions they take and whatever. And that's a very general thing you could just get on Google, right? It's not a special answer and it's not untrue either. But if I were the coach, I would say, okay, let's think about this because I want to know, what is your genre? What is your theme? Because that plays into my answer to you. And then also, what is your character's specific wound? Because if you're writing romance and the character's wound is around trust, or if you're writing horror and your character's wound is around trust, that's going to make a difference in how I answer you. So we had to basically teach the AI how to triage questions, and then it can't move forward until it either gets the answer from the student or gets an I don't know answer from the student. And if it got an I don't know answer, then there's a whole other pathway that it takes to help them develop those foundational things first.
It was really your brain kind of thinking through, if I was on a live coaching call with the student, how would I handle it? And that's what really made the biggest difference for the AI. Do you agree?
Totally agree. And there was little things we caught here and there, like maybe it would get a term slightly incorrect to how I would use it. And those were really easy to just pick up and fix as they went. But the foundational triaging of questions is really what makes me special too as a coach. And so to get that in the AI was a really big deal. And now I used to worry, am I doing a disservice to my writers because they're getting an AI output that, yeah, it's based on my course material, but in theory, they could take all this and put it in AI and maybe get the same similar answer, right? And now that we've built in that triage system, I'm like, no, they are getting the benefit of having me also as their coach because it's the same thing I would ask them. And
I love that.
I wouldn't have known how to think about it that way if you weren't constantly asking me, how would you do it? And here, I think we need to teach it the process of how you would do it. I probably would have just thrown more information at my AI.
Brings me to our next question is what kind of feedback have you gotten from your students and how exactly are they using it? And what I love about the tool that we use here, which is Delphi AI for anybody who's listening here, you can actually see the conversation so you know if the AI is answering them the right way.
So we had a beta group from my membership because I knew that those were the most AI friendly and they would also be willing to do a beta and know that it wasn't going to be perfect and all that. So I think we had about 10 to 15 users as we went out with this. And we tried to set up some rules. This is just for anyone who's thinking about this. We set up some guidelines, like it's not going to be able to answer questions about the writing of your specific scene. And people would still ask it questions like that. So I still haven't figured out the best way to handle that up front. But anyway, that's not the question. So the question was, what kinds of things were people asking it? And we could see on the backside. So we were looking at, because as part of the training, I remember we had to zoom out and say, okay, what are people actually going to ask it? And is it picking up the right things or is it not picking up the right things? So that was how we actually found the need for this triage kind of system that we built into it or framework. And then there were other people, like I remember at one point we're like, wow, one user had 400 piece conversation with it. And it was so fascinating to read through it. And I don't know if this is true of my niche or all niches, but my students were so nice to the AI, like saying, please and thank you. I love that. But it was just really interesting to me to see, okay, what are they asking it? What are they getting back? That helped us fix it or make it better. And then also, the best feedback I ever got was just one person said, I really felt like I was talking to you, which that's the goal. And then the other really surprising thing that's great that happened is people were using it to ask questions before coming to office hours. So they would, let's say I'm a student and I upload part of my outline and I say, this is like how it would really work. I say, can you give me feedback on these 3 scenes in Act 1? The AI now, because we've had it, we know it needs to triage things. It says, okay, let's back up. What's your genre? What's your theme? Tell me a little bit more about your story so I can give you more specific, actionable feedback. So then it would, and the student would get the feedback on their 3 scenes of the outline, and they would then go off and edit it based on that. And then they'd come to the office hours and they say, hey, I worked with the AI. I got it to this point. Do you think I'm good? Or is there anything else you might see? There might be a little thing that I was like, okay, just because I know you or because I know typical challenges like thriller writers fall into or whatever, just keep an eye out for this, but overall you're good. So it was actually making them or helping them bring higher level questions to our office hours, which is in my world, I'm like, that's what I want. This is not meant to be like, ask me the basic questions. You can, of course, but I would rather help you with the deeper stuff so that you can actually get your goals accomplished.
And I feel like you saying that made this whole project worth it. Just getting those higher level questions in your office hours. That is, do you feel like it's decreased the amount of extra work that you have?
I do, because I almost feel, and this might be a weird way to say it, but it almost feels like it's taken some of the mental load or emotional load off my plate in a way, because when people are trying to figure things out, they have a lot of emotions too. And so if they can go to a more neutral AI that's going to be still supportive and help them work through their thoughts, and they don't have to worry about coming to an office hours and being embarrassed about asking a question or whatever. then I'm a very sensitive person. So will pick up on that too. And I try to hold space for the emotion and all that. And now it's just the lower energy stuff for them can happen with the AI. And they like that because they're not feeling exposed or vulnerable for not knowing what they don't know. And then also it's in a way rewarding for them and for me to be like, yeah, you did that. Good job. But you are ready to move on to the next phase of whatever you're doing.
So it sounds like it's giving them more confidence too.
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing.
And it's fun because it almost feels like they're coming and they're proud of their work versus I don't feel good about this and I need you to help me get out of this rut. It's almost like they're doing that with the AI, which of course it's fine if they come to office hours and do that with me, but I like that they can do that when they need it versus waiting 4 days to come to office hours.
Yeah, so they can, if they're working at midnight on a Saturday night or whatever, they can keep going. So I love that. Any last minute tips for the audience here? If they are thinking about this or maybe on the fence or trying to figure out, would this work for me? What would you say to them?
I would say definitely give it a shot because you deserve to have that time back in your calendar. And if you need help, like obviously people like Destiny are there to help. And Destiny was great to work with and very easy, made the stress of it go away. I really appreciate you for that, Destiny, because it is something that can be overwhelming if you let it be. And yeah, just having Destiny there to slow you down and not help you not have you get overwhelmed and also say, this week we're going to do this. Next week, we're going to do this. Let's worry about one chunk at a time was really helpful. So if you need help, go find someone who can help or work with Destiny and don't let the tech scare you because even if you're not tech friendly, A, there's people to help and B, things are just getting smarter and easier every day. By the time you listen to this, it's onboarding into your AI clone is probably way easier than it was 6 months ago whenever Destiny and I did it.
Isn't it crazy how fast tech is changing?
It's crazy, but it's also cool. I'm so into all the AI developments. But yeah, I would say just go for it because, again, like your time is so worth it and you deserve to do the things you want to do.
So, Savannah, can you let folks know where they can find you? Because I know there's a lot of people listening that have this on their bucket list too, just like me. So let folks know where to find you. And I believe you have a free gift for them also.
Yes. So if any of you are fiction curious and you want to write a novel, come find me at savannahgilbo.com. And I also have a free quiz that if you are fiction curious and you're like, okay, where would I even start? Or maybe you have started something and it's been a couple years since you touched it and you're stuck. My quiz will tell you and give you resources of, okay, you are here. Here's what you need to do to get to your next milestone, whether that's finishing a draft, starting a draft, whatever. So go take the quiz. I know Destiny's going to put the link in the show notes for that.
Yes, I will definitely have it there. And Savannah, thank you so much for joining us and sharing all of this with us. And I'm so happy that this is doing so well for you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And maybe we'll have to chat again because one thing I didn't say is that we are about to roll it out to our evergreen notes to novel, like in that package as like, here's a benefit of doing the self-study version. So TBD on how that goes, but I will keep you posted.
Yeah, definitely keep us posted. Thanks for listening all the way to the end. I hope you enjoyed this episode today. If you loved the show, I'd appreciate a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. Have a great rest of your day and bye for now.